I'm Senator Bill Perkins. I represent what is known as the 30th Senatorial District, which includes Harlem, East Harlem El Barrio, Upper West Side Morningside Heights, Washington Heights, and I have the privilege of representing this neighborhood. And recently, unfortunately, we've had to deal with the fact that the National Urban League is coming into the neighborhood in a way that is causing a great deal of concern, especially for minority merchants on 125th Street, who, according to the Urban League's plan, will have to be displaced, put out of business. If I may, these are merchants, entrepreneurs, small businesses that came to Harlem when no one else wanted to be in Harlem. Came to Harlem when their families were astonished, believing that they might get killed in those storefront businesses that they decided to invest in. And lo and behold, where they may have been sand, they created gold and were able to thrive modestly in a way that would enable them to take care of their families, and at the same time have enough to contribute to community organizations, block associations, tenant associations, and be an important part of the neighborhood. These four businesses, unfortunately, in the Urban League plan, will be forced out of business. And they're concerned that this is unjust, unfair, and they're concerned that the governor, Andrew Cuomo, is complicit in the effort to have them put out of their business. The plan that the Urban League is proposing includes them vacating their storefronts, and in that regard, effectively putting them out of business. They don't want to leave. They have worked very hard to be successful, and they believe that they should be included in any development plan being sponsored by the Urban League, and of course being supported by the governor. So that is how they're being put out, because the Urban League's plan does not include them, and the governor has given the Urban League carte blanche to do whatever they want to do. We've come to know about the project, I guess, in the last few months as it began to unfold, particularly in terms of a community meeting that was supposed to take place that would basically provide an opportunity for the community to know in detail about the plan. Unfortunately, that community meeting, that community hearing, did not take place. The state claimed that they called the meeting and nobody showed up. We claim that how could you call a meeting at that time in the summer when, for instance, our local community board was out of session for that period of time. So we demanded, and fortunately were able to get the community hearing rescheduled, and that was the first time in which we began to hear in better detail exactly what was going to take place. Mark Morial, the national leader of the Urban League, made a presentation. And again, in that presentation, it was clear that coming would be their national headquarters. No longer were they considering Macy's. However, nevertheless, they were also going to have a civil rights museum And that museum was going to be where these four businesses are presently. The Empire State Development Corporation, an agency of the governor, designated them as developers for the site. And that designation included them partnering at first possibly with Macy's. However, since then, Macy's is no longer part of the deal. It also included the New York City Economic Development Corporation being involved for the city-owned property, where now they have the garage. And then it also unfortunately involved the removal of the four businesses that have been here for so long, and which will now be a part of a civil rights history museum. There's an irony here, which I think was best represented by one of the owners of one of the businesses called Fishers for Men. And when we had a preliminary meeting and the Urban League was representing what they were doing, the owner of Fishers of Men said, "So you're going to have a civil rights museum. And in that museum, you're going to tell the history, I'm sure, of lynching in our community. Well, this proposal, you might as well use my neck for your museum, because effectively your proposal will be lynching me and putting me out of business." So that's the irony of it. A civil rights organization is being in leadership not to protect these minority businesses, but rather quite the opposite, to put them out of business. This is a very, very severe twist of a history of civil rights in which the leadership is part of the problem, not the solution. But the governor and the Urban League, in recognition of the trials and tribulations suffered by these merchants, to redo the plan in such a way that they're included. We think that that is the epitome of good civil rights activism, when you embrace those who have been in the vanguard of turning the community around in terms of 125th Street, as opposed to what is presently being proposed, which is to effectively take them out of their business and put them in a situation in which they might be bankrupt, because while they are being offered a so-called loan for $250,000 to relocate, effectively from their point of view, the $250,000 is a smack in the face, especially when there is really no comparable place to relocate. So they're getting, to say the least, the short end of the stick, and their families and the community being severely shortchanged, especially in light of the heroic leadership that they've provided by setting up a business in this community when no one would dare set up a business in this community.